My sister's friend lived in a house that never felt normal. This isn't my story, just to make that clear from the start. This happened to my sister around 10 years ago when she was a teenager. It all started with her best friend, who I'll call M. They were extremely close and lived relatively near each other, so they constantly slept over at one another's houses. One evening, my sister and another mutual friend were sleeping over at M's house. They were hanging out while M had already fallen asleep. At one point, there were some glasses on the table, and suddenly one of them moved completely on its own. It was the first strange and creepy experience they had, and nobody could explain it. They brushed it off and tried to connect it to something rational. A few years later, M and her family moved into a house directly across from the house where my sister lived. Since they were always together, M invited my sister to help her family move in. I was in that house a few times myself, because M had a younger sister who was my age, and the house always had a really strange energy. While helping them move in, my sister entered one room with pink walls that was covered in crosses and religious items. Before M's family moved there, a man had lived in the house with his mother, and people assumed it had been the mother's room because she was supposedly very religious. Later, they found pictures in drawers of the man who had previously lived there posing with naked women. They ignored it, thinking it was weird, but not necessarily abnormal. One day, my sister was at M's house again. The house had 2 floors, and they were downstairs while M's mom was making food for them, and her dad was watching TV. Most of M's sisters weren't home except for one, who I'll call N. While they were hanging out downstairs, they suddenly heard loud running and banging coming from upstairs. M's dad assumed it was N, and started yelling at her to calm down. A few seconds later, N walked out of the downstairs bathroom and said it wasn't her. Again, everyone ignored it because nobody really believed in paranormal things and they always tried to find a rational explanation. Sometime later, M called my sister late at night, terrified. She said she could hear loud banging and scratching coming from a room they had never been able to open. When they first moved into the house, the room had a padlock on it, and since they didn't have the key, they didn't want to break the door down. She said the noises were so loud that she couldn't sleep because it sounded like something was trapped inside. The next morning, when everyone woke up, the door to that room was standing wide open. Inside there wasn't anything special, just random old storage-like items, and a single chair in the middle of the room. Another thing that happened before my sister eventually stopped being friends with them was when my sister slept over there one night. They had gone to sleep normally, but during the night my sister woke up to the sound of crying and muffled screaming. The sounds weren't coming from inside the room, but from outside. There was strong wind that night, and maybe it could have been caused by the wind, but according to my sister, it didn't sound like wind at all.